What's good, people? Welcome to another episode of the MySpace Effect, Building Influence and Impact. I'm your host, Herschel M. Tonight is going to be real candid. Really just want to share some things in a sense. Really want to deal with a subject regarding the price of purpose. I'm realizing there's a lot of people right now that's dealing with a great level of loneliness. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not talking about like a broken heart and just this whole, we're walloping in just emotions. But I'm talking about how expensive purpose really is. Not necessarily in money in a sense, but more so like moments where you feel unseen, misunderstood, and stretched beyond your limits. I really want to talk about that because it is something that's going on with a lot of leaders right now. I really want to talk about that tonight because, like I said, purpose will show you who's for you, but it also expose who's not. And it also separate those who are assigned to your vision from those who are just attached to your visibility. Sometimes people think this loneliness that we're feeling is punishment. But ultimately, in a sense, before I get ahead of myself, it's really just God graduating you and how to carry what God has given you when support is scarce. So I think it's going to be a pretty good one. So, let's get to it.
Got some big things coming up. Sit back, relax, enjoy the music, and welcome to my space.
Welcome to my space. You did not.
The price of purpose. Why visions feel so lonely. Sometimes we have to understand the reality of that particular assignment that we have as leaders. Leadership ultimately doesn't just call you, it costs you. And a lot of people, they pray for vision, but not for the endurance that comes with it. And that's something I really want to kind of hone in on tonight, just different aspects of that. Because the reality is that I know for myself, this year has been really rough. It's been extremely rough. And I'll be honest with you, your boy tired. The Bible talks about write the vision, though it tarry, wait for it. Sometimes vision can often isolate before it elevates. And in that patience, God can filter who can handle the proximity of your purpose. Waiting, patience. Waiting is almost like a waiter. A person, if you go to a restaurant, they're waiting tables. They're doing things in the midst of taking care of other, customers, the people that come in and dine. But they're waiting. They're being progressive. They ain't just sitting around and not doing anything, but they're being patient. And in doing that, you'll be able to learn, once again, who can handle that proximity of purpose. So ultimately, what I'm trying to say is that when your circle shrinks, don't assume rejection. Assume refinement. That's important because when you get into the loneliness of leadership, every visionary experienced what Jesus did in Gethsemane. Surrounded, yet alone. And so in that journey of moving in vision and leadership and in trying to establish, you'll have three types of people you'll meet. Number one, curious. They'll like the energy, but not the assignment. They love the hype. But yeah, that assignment, we good. Yeah. They can't stand it. And then number two, you'll find some people that are convenient. Yeah, they'll be convenient. They'll be loyal until it costs them something. I know somebody looking at this phone, TV, like, Negro, you talking. I'll continue to do so. Thank you very much. Yeah. You're number one, curious. Number two, convenient. And then number three, covenantal. They're assigned, not attached. They're assigned and not attached. The reality of it as a whole is that loneliness isn't proof of failure. It's just really proof of calling. And that's why you have to be careful, because people can if they start altering what you're calling and what you're supposed to be doing as a leader, they can start messing with your hope and they can drain you. And I can get into that more at another time. But sometimes, I guess what I'm trying to say is you have to stop trying to convince people to stay when their season has expired. I mentioned earlier about being tired, but this year for me has been extremely tough. It has been extremely tough. And so it has been imperative that I have some type of emotional navigation. And in it being tough, I realized that, leadership fatigue isn't just physical. It is emotional depletion. It is. I've had to learn how to separate being misunderstood from being mishandled. I've had to. And then I had to learn to not bleed on the people that I've been called to lead. So one would ask, well, what did that look like for me? Well, you got some practical tools. Some, they journal, as a way to process that emotional residue. And then for some, they have like established 2 or 3 people they can confide in, not fans, please, not fans, but confidence. And I've been blessed to have a few in my circle that I can share. And it's been like iron sharpening iron. There is a synergy that happens when you meet people that can be trusted. Even the Bible says that there's safety in the multitude of counselors, which ultimately means there's victory. Even when stuff like failure and loss, there's victory. There is wisdom in that. And that's where that derives from. For some, you can build rhythms of rest that protect your mental health. And that's important, because the best leadership decision you can make is being able to rest without quitting. So when it comes to another component of navigating through this, the spiritual alignment of things, when support thins, spiritual depth must thicken. In prison, they have a thing called solitary confinement. Now, ultimately, some may not know this, but prison, prison, all of that was created and allowed by God so people can get a taste of hell. I know this is not my other channel for Bible study, but I'm trying to paint a picture. It gives you a decision for your wrongdoing before you make an eternal one. You see what I'm saying? So solitary confinement in its original state was to help people get a great awakening, to wake up, to isolate you for purposes of discipline. Obviously, discipleship is discipline one. Am I talking good? But I'm trying to break down the perspective. So it would cause people to get away and really think about their decisions. Now, folks want solitary confinement. They ain't studying about all of that. Listen, I want to get away. But that's what that makes me think about. That's what can happen in true solitude. Your spiritual depth can thicken, because God can use the gap between vision seen and vision fulfilled to build dependence. When you look at Elijah in 1 Kings 19, the same man who called down fire wanted to quit, but God didn't replace him. He just ultimately refueled him. So it's imperative that we learn the difference between isolation for sanctification and isolation from sabotage. When people cannot carry the vision, you have to let the Spirit carry you. And that's why I've talked about before about emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, spiritual maturity. Those things matter. They matter a great deal. They matter more than one may think. I want to give a little bit of encouragement to some leaders, that is, pouring courage into you. Because goodness without courage is worthless. And some of us watching right now need a little bit of courage. One thing that I've learned as this year come to an end for me personally is that often what feels like delay is simply development. And that pruning season is really just a training ground for a person's capacity, clarity, and credibility. And my hope and prayer is that in listening to this, that you realize that what feels lonely now will prove to be a launching ground for you. going into the year 2026 and beyond. Because ultimately, God isn't preparing the stage. He's preparing us for the stage. Because so many things are changing. So many things are going on. And you have to ask yourself, what if the support we're missing now is the noise God removed so that you can hear him clearly? So, if you've been walking through a quiet season, take this podcast tonight as your confirmation that heaven hasn't gone silent. It's just gone surgical. Yeah. God is pruning the crowd to protect your clarity. And you're not necessarily falling behind. I felt that way this year. I'm just like, I'm going through all of this madness and I'm getting behind on so much. But really, you're being fortified. And what fortification means is that you're being covered. It's like this bottle of water. When it's uncovered, there's so much that can get into it. Things we can't even see. Not with our natural eyes. But once you get covered, what's in here can be fortified, kept, maximized. And ultimately, this is an example of the price of purpose. And no, the payoff is coming. The payoff is coming. The payoff is coming. All right, people, you've been listening to the MySpace Effect, building influence and impact. Share this with another leader in a lonely season, because purpose may isolate you, but it will also identify you. Hope you enjoyed this episode. I will see you guys next week. Y'all be blessed. Take it easy. Peace.